I will never forget the moment when the people I once called family revealed who they truly were. On my birthday, with the table filled with laughter and flashing cameras, my mother-in-law slid a golden box toward me. I opened it slowly, expecting a necklace, maybe even a thoughtful card. Instead, my hands froze. Inside were divorce papers, signed and ready. My husband leaned back with a smug grin, his sister's laughter slicing through the air, and my mother-in-law leaned close, whispering, "You'll leave with nothing." They thought they had broken me. They thought I was powerless. But what they didn't realize, I had been preparing for this moment. My name is Clara Hayes. I'm 30 years old, born and raised in a modest working-class neighborhood. My parents were kind people who taught me the value of hard work, humility, and respect. Life was never luxurious, but it was honest, and that honesty shaped me. I carried those values into my job at La Bella Roma, a small Italian restaurant tucked in the corner of our town. It wasn't glamorous, sticky menus, crowded tables, and a noisy kitchen, but it was home. I loved the rhythm of the place, the warmth of regular customers, and the satisfaction of serving food that made people smile. When I met Daniel Moore, I thought I was stepping into a fairy tale. He was charming, polished, and came from one of the wealthiest families in the city. The Moores owned properties, businesses, and commanded influence in social circles I never dreamed of entering. Daniel swept me off my feet, telling me he admired my simplicity, my kindness, my grounded nature. For the first time, I believed love could cross social boundaries. But reality was harsher than the dream. His mother, Evelyn Moore, was the kind of woman who could silence a room with just a glance. Elegant, sharp-tongued, and merciless, she ran the family like a kingdom. From the very first moment, she looked at me as if I were dirt on her designer heels. "A waitress isn't fit for a Moore," she said more times than I could count, each word slicing deeper than the last. Daniel's sister, Sophie, was no better. Spoiled, entitled, and eager to echo her mother, she treated me like an intruder. Every family gathering felt like a stage where they performed their contempt, making sure I knew exactly how small they thought I was. At first, Daniel defended me. Or at least, he pretended to. But slowly, inevitably, he changed. The man I thought loved me began to flinch whenever someone asked what I did for work. He avoided introducing me to his colleagues, embarrassed that his wife served pasta and wine for a living. Soon, his silence became agreement. He joined their cruel chorus, and I became the outsider in my own marriage. I tried, God knows I tried, to fit into their world. I applied for jobs they deemed respectable, stayed up late polishing resumes, and even took night classes. But rejection after rejection piled up, and with each failure, I saw Evelyn's smirk grow wider. To them, my shortcomings were proof that I was worthless. I began to feel invisible. My dreams, my efforts, my dignity, none of it mattered. Yet I stayed, clinging to the fragile hope that family still meant loyalty, that love could outweigh pride. But I was wrong. Terribly wrong. 3 days before my 31st birthday, life as I knew it cracked open. I came home earlier than usual, tired from the lunch rush at La Bella Roma. The house was quiet, but the study door was half open, and I caught a glimpse of Evelyn inside. Papers lay scattered across her mahogany desk. When she noticed me standing there, her eyes widened for just a fraction of a second before she snatched them up with an elegance so cold it chilled me. "What are those?" I asked, my voice shaky but firm. "Family documents. Nothing you need to worry about," she replied with that familiar icy smile, the one that always made me feel like a child intruding where I didn't belong. But I had already seen enough in that fleeting moment. The bold print of a law firm's letterhead, Daniel's signature scrawled in blue ink, and my own name typed neatly beside his. Divorce papers. My stomach dropped. I felt the air leave my lungs as if someone had punched me. My husband, the man I cooked for, cleaned for, sacrificed for, was preparing to discard me like yesterday's garbage. That night, I tried to confront Daniel. My hands trembled as I held the words back until they spilled. I saw the papers, Daniel. Are you divorcing me? He didn't even flinch. He simply sighed, as though my anguish were an inconvenience. Clara, it's for the best. You'll understand soon. That was all. No explanation. No remorse. Just a casual dismissal, as if 7 years of love and marriage meant nothing at all. Still, nothing could prepare me for what came next. On my birthday, they staged their cruelest theater. Daniel suggested we all celebrate at La Bella Roma, my safe place, my pride, the little restaurant where I felt useful and alive. I thought perhaps it was his way of apologizing. Perhaps he remembered who I was before Evelyn's venom poisoned everything. But I was a fool. They filled the corner table, Evelyn seated like a queen, Sophie smirking at her side. Daniel played the doting husband in front of my co-workers, ordering wine and laughing loudly. I forced myself to serve them with a smile, though my heart pounded. When dessert arrived, Evelyn slid a golden box across the table toward me. "Happy birthday, Clara," she said sweetly, her voice dripping with poison. I opened it with trembling fingers, expecting jewelry, maybe a cruel token. Instead, my worst fears stared back at me. Divorce papers, pristine and final, tied with a satin ribbon like a gift. Laughter erupted. Daniel chuckled. Sophie clapped her hands as though she'd witnessed the punchline of a perfect joke. Evelyn simply smirked, satisfied with the spectacle. Around us, customers and co-workers watched in stunned silence. I wanted to crumble, to run, to scream. But I didn't. Instead, I smiled. A calm, deliberate smile that silenced their laughter for just a moment. Because what they didn't know was this. Just the day before, I had received a phone call that would change everything. The call from the Grand Crest Hotel felt like a lifeline thrown to a drowning woman. When the voice on the other end told me they admired my professionalism, my calm under pressure, my reputation for running flawless events even in chaos, I almost dropped the phone. For years, I had been nothing more than the Moor's shadow, silent, obedient, invisible. And suddenly, someone saw me. Not Daniel's wife. Not Evelyn's servant. Just Clara. The offer was beyond anything I had dared to imagine. Assistant event manager at the most prestigious five-star hotel in the city. A salary triple my current wage. Full benefits. Even housing on the hotel grounds, away from the suffocating reach of the Moore mansion. I accepted before they could change their minds, my voice steady though my hands trembled with adrenaline. That night, as the Moores clinked their glasses and mocked me over dessert, I sat straighter, my smile unfaltering. They believed they had crushed me. But deep inside, a fire blazed. I was no longer their discarded servant. I was a woman with options, with power. And soon they would know it. But I didn't want to simply escape. That would be too merciful. No, what I craved was justice. I wanted them to feel exactly what they had made me feel: humiliation, betrayal, and the helplessness of being cornered. Revenge, yes, but not rash and reckless. My plan would be patient, deliberate, and undeniable. So I began to prepare. Every night, while Daniel slept soundly beside me, I slipped away with my phone and gathered evidence. Screenshots of cruel messages Evelyn had sent me. Recordings of Daniel dismissing my worth. And most delicious of all, video clips Sophie herself had foolishly posted online. Clips mocking me as the pathetic wife, laughing about how easy it would be to replace me. Each file was a weapon, and I stored them carefully, knowing the right time would come. The more I dug, the more the cracks in their empire revealed themselves. Evelyn's company, the pride she flaunted at every charity ball, was rotting from within. Financial reports showed desperate loans, partnerships hanging by threads, and quiet whispers of bankruptcy circling like vultures. And then fate handed me the sharpest dagger of all. I discovered that one of Evelyn's largest silent investors was none other than the Grand Crest Hotel. The very place that had just welcomed me into their family. The irony was exquisite. The Moors had mocked me at La Bella Roma, in front of my colleagues. Soon I would stand at the Grand Crest, in a position of authority, with access to their world from a vantage point they could not control. I saw my opening. This was no longer about survival, it was about rewriting the story. About showing them that the woman they laughed at was capable of far more than they ever dreamed. So I sharpened my smile, tucked away my evidence, and waited. Because the next act would not belong to them. It would belong to me. The night of my so-called birthday party had started with humiliation, but it ended with a storm none of them ever saw coming. After staring at those divorce papers, I took a deep breath, steadied my hands, and signed them right there at the table. My voice was calm, almost too calm. "If this is what you want, then so be it," I said. The Moors smirked like they'd won the greatest victory. Sophie clapped sarcastically. Evelyn whispered loudly enough for the guests to hear, "Finally, we're rid of her." The cameras kept flashing, guests leaning closer, waiting for me to break down. But instead of tears, I stood tall. I could feel every eye on me, yet for the first time, I wasn't ashamed. I was in control. I raised my glass. "Since tonight seems to be about new beginnings," I said, my voice steady and deliberate, "I have one too." A hush fell over the room. "I've just been offered the position of assistant event manager at the Grand Crest Hotel, with housing on the grounds, benefits, and a salary that would make anyone proud." The silence was deafening. Then, gasps rippled through the crowd. Sophie's phone slipped from her hand, clattering onto the floor. Daniel's smirk froze in place. Evelyn blinked rapidly, as if she had misheard. But I wasn't finished. I leaned in, my tone sharper now. "And one more thing. As of yesterday, I've also been appointed as the hotel's investor relations manager, which means," I pulled a sleek black folder from my purse and laid it on the table, "I now have access to all records concerning companies tied to the Grand Crest." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in. "Like more enterprises." Evelyn's face drained of color. Her lips trembled as she reached for the folder, but I pulled it back. I opened it slowly, revealing documents with bold red stamps, overdue debts, broken contracts, lawsuits swept under the rug. I flipped each page like I was peeling away the layers of their carefully constructed facade. "Without the Grand Crest's continued backing, your company collapses in less than 6 months." The room erupted. Daniel lunged across the table, shouting, "You're bluffing!" Sophie grabbed at the papers, screaming, "You can't do this to us!" Evelyn clutched her pearls, her voice sharp and desperate. "These lies will ruin everything." That's when the twist came. From a quiet corner of the restaurant, a man in a tailored suit stood up. All eyes turned as he stepped into the light. It was Mr. Jameson, the hotel's senior director, and the very man who had offered me the job. He addressed the stunned crowd with cool authority. "Nothing she has said is a lie. As of yesterday, Mrs. Clara Hayes is officially our new investor relations manager. She speaks on behalf of the Grand Crest Hotel." He gestured toward the documents. "Those files are authentic, and they confirm that Moore Enterprises has been skating on thin ice for years. The hotel will be reviewing its partnerships immediately." The cameras that had once captured my humiliation now recorded the Moore's downfall. Guests whispered in shock. Some even filmed Evelyn's face as the realization hit her. Her empire, her reputation, her control were slipping away, all because of the woman she thought was beneath her. Daniel stuttered something incoherent, trying to save face. Sophie sobbed, mascara streaking her cheeks. Evelyn's hands shook as she tried to gather her composure, but her voice cracked when she finally spoke. You planned this." I smiled, not bitterly, not cruelly, but with the quiet satisfaction of someone reclaiming her power. "No. You planned my humiliation. I simply planned my future." And with that, I closed the folder, tucked it under my arm, and walked out of La Bella Roma with my head held high. Behind me, the Moors were left in ruins, not just emotionally, but financially. Their cruelty had set the stage. I had only delivered the final act. Daniel slammed his fists on the table, his voice cracking with rage. "You think you can destroy us? You're nothing without me." His words didn't sting the way they once would have. I smiled, calm, unshaken. For the first time, I held all the power. Evelyn's tone shifted from arrogant to desperate. "Grace, listen to me. We can work something out. Let's be civil, You don't want to drag the family name through the mud. You loved this family once, didn't you?" Her attempt at charm was pathetic. I leaned in, lowering my voice so every camera could still catch my words. "No, Evelyn. I loved the illusion of family. You destroyed that long ago." Sophie, panicked, whipped out her phone. "She's lying. All of this is fake." She turned the camera toward herself, trying to salvage her influencer persona. But the live stream betrayed her. Thousands of comments scrolled across the screen, viewers calling her cruel, heartless, fake. Some even tagged sponsors, demanding they cut ties. Her reputation was imploding before her very eyes. And then I pressed play. The recording crackled to life, filling the restaurant with Daniel's voice. "She's nothing but a useless waitress. After the divorce, we'll find someone with real class." Followed by Evelyn's chilling laugh. "Let's humiliate her on her birthday. That way, she'll never forget she was never one of us." The room went silent. Forks dropped. Gasps filled the air. Even the waitstaff froze, eyes wide in disbelief. Sophie's live stream captured every second, broadcasting their cruelty to tens of thousands. Daniel's face drained of color. Evelyn shook her head violently. "That's taken out of context." "Out of context?" I repeated, my voice cold but steady. "No, Evelyn. This is the context. This is who you really are." The comments exploded online. "Monsters. Abusers. Justice served." Daniel lunged toward me, but two hotel security guards, stationed discreetly at my request, intercepted him. He shouted, red-faced, his voice cracking into something pitiful. Evelyn slumped into her chair, her carefully crafted image of elegance shattered. Sophie buried her face in her hands, sobbing as her empire crumbled. "And me." I stood tall, no longer the timid woman they once toyed with. I looked directly into Sophie's phone, addressing not just the Moors, but the thousands watching. "Never let anyone make you feel worthless. They only laugh at you when they fear your strength." The comments roared in support. My chest rose with pride. For the first time in years, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't the servant, the doormat, the scapegoat. I was the woman who had taken back her life and destroyed those who tried to destroy her. Daniel's voice was a whisper now. "Please, Grace, don't do this. Don't leave me." I gave him one last look. Not of love. Not even of hate. Just indifference. "It's already done." And with that, I walked out of La Bella Roma, head high, the sound of their downfall echoing behind me like music. The fallout was merciless. By sunrise the next day, the Moore name was plastered across every major news outlet, not for their wealth, not for their status, but for their cruelty. Clips from Sophie's live stream went viral, racking up millions of views in just hours. The very family that once thrived on reputation had become a national scandal. Investors fled from Moore enterprises like rats abandoning a sinking ship. Stock prices plummeted, board members scrambled for cover, and within a week, Evelyn was quietly forced to resign. The once commanding matriarch who had boasted about real status was reduced to a shadow of herself, hiding from paparazzi at the country club that once celebrated her. Daniel fared no better. The divorce settlement hit him harder than any blow he'd ever known. He had mocked me as a useless waitress, yet it was his arrogance that had left him stripped of everything. With debts mounting and his public image destroyed, he filed for bankruptcy. His swagger was gone. In its place stood a man broken, abandoned even by those who once courted his influence. And Sophie, the self-styled it girl, learned how brutal the internet could be. Sponsorships dropped her within days. Hashtags mocking her trended worldwide. Once adored, she became a cautionary tale. Every attempt to rebuild her brand was met with scorn. Her empire of followers had crumbled into dust, and she was left to face the silence she once feared most. But while they drowned in the wreckage of their own making, I finally came up for air. I moved into my new apartment at the Grand Crest, a place that overlooked the city skyline. It wasn't just a home, it was a symbol of freedom, a reminder that I had built a life on my own terms. My new colleagues at the consulting firm welcomed me warmly, not because of who I had married, but because of who I was, Clara Hayes, independent and capable. For years, I had been underestimated, mocked, betrayed. They tried to reduce me to nothing more than a footnote in their story. But in the end, I had become the author of my own narrative. On the balcony of my new apartment, I sipped a glass of wine and let the city lights wash over me. For the first time, I felt whole, not defined by a man's wealth or a family's name, but by my own strength. They had tried to break me. Instead, they revealed me. And as I closed my eyes that night, I whispered to myself the truth I had always longed to believe. I wasn't just free. I had won. My story is not only about revenge, it is about rediscovering self-worth when others try to erase it. Too often, people believe they can measure our value by wealth, status, or appearances. But true strength comes from refusing to let their judgments define us. Justice doesn't always wear a robe or come through a courtroom. Sometimes, justice is simply the courage to reveal the truth, to refuse silence, and to stand tall even when the world tries to make you small. Now, I want to ask you, if you were betrayed, humiliated, and discarded, would you have kept quiet, or would you fight back like I did? Share this story if you believe dignity is worth defending. And tell me in the comments, is revenge true justice, or does it chain us in another way?